inflation, a constant problem.
Bold economic policies.
The inflation.
Triple-digit inflation.
Something's happening in Argentina.
Today, more than 4 in 10 Argentinians live in poverty. So let me tell you why this is a problem.
This is a country with a 193% inflation rate. Can you imagine? Not to mention over half of its population suffers from poverty while having to pay crazy prices for things like food, gas, electricity, and other basic necessities, which obviously leads to black markets and nefarious activities. The country has a history of military coups and economic policies that seem like they could help the people, but they just failed again and again. So how did this happen? How can a country that was just 100 years ago one of the wealthiest countries in the world be in such shambles today? To understand this, we have to start right here. (1860). Just 44 years after the country had gained its independence, Argentina had reached a boom in its exports. Most of its early exports came from sheep and cattle production. Foreign investors and migrants from countries like Italy, Spain, and Central Europe began flooding the country at a rapid rate, mostly to set up wineries and farms. This was because Argentina was known for its low grasslands, which are called pampas. This was grass that was very rich, and as you probably could guess, this is the perfect condition for raising livestock and cattle, as well as growing grain like wheats and corn. As a matter of fact, the country will become one of the largest exporters in meat, grain, and wines. So much so that, as usual during periods of extreme growth, speculation started to happen. Between 1860 and 1930, the country was set up to become one of the wealthiest countries in the world, even rivaling the United States. Cities like Buenos Aires became dubbed as the Paris of South America for its opulence, and phrases like "as rich as Argentina" became a thing. Everything seemed to be working, but then something happened. Right around here.
I will address them with a candor and a decision which the present situation of our people impels. So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
One of the most devastating financial crises hit the world. Not only did the Great Depression hit the United States hard, but it hit economies like Argentina hard, if not harder. Investments to the country immediately started to dry up as people tightened up their budgets and had less money to invest. But this is where things really started to fall apart. Argentina was known for its open trade, but when the Great Depression happened, countries around the world began to look inward. They began to practice a theory known as protectionism, which basically just means that they began to look within their borders for goods and services. And this was extremely detrimental since most of Argentina's economy was partnered with countries like Britain. The middle class shrank and found it incredibly hard to pay bills, and the elite empires began to fall. And as things continued to fall apart, it opened the door for anger and frustration amongst the people, especially the elite, who decided to form a coup. They joined forces with the military to overthrow the government. The people were actually on board with this coup. As the military marched through the streets, the people cheered. This era would be known as the infamous decade, and it was led by General Jose Felix Uriburu, a man who pretty much ran a fascist regime under the guise of democracy. This new regime would try to get the people on their side by making it easier for local industries to scale up, in turn hiring more workers and giving the people a sense of self-sufficiency. But this was just a temporary band-aid, because the working conditions eventually became poor, and as World War II began, the flow of wealth became increasingly unequal, with the wealthy elite accounting for 11% of the country's wealth. And once again, another coup erupted, this time giving rise to a new political leader, one whose effects are still felt in today's Argentina: Juan Perón. He was sort of the people's champ. He was known for going within the lower and middle class, touring the neighborhoods and getting on the side of the people. He reinforced labor laws, negotiated payment agreements, and fought for better working conditions. And when he was put in prison by the military for his views, it caused a nationwide outrage amongst the people. 300,000 people marched the streets demanding his release, to which the government gave in. Like, this man had serious influence on the people. Once he was elected president, he implemented policies like universal social security, minimum wage, paid vacation, maternity benefits, free healthcare, and protection against unfair working conditions. He seemed to be doing well by the people of Argentina, building affordable housing, purchasing railways, and increasing its overall industrial production. He even managed to clear all of Argentina's debts within a few years. So, where did things go wrong? Well, Perón's policies depended on unsustainable government spending. They began to over-rely on commodities like beef and wheat, and this created a fragile economy prone to boom and bust cycles. By the 1980s, Argentina began printing money to fund its spending, leading to skyrocketing inflation, at times as high as 5,000%. Perón was eventually exiled, and even after his death, the ideology still lives on today. Subsidies and populist views are still ingrained in their day-to-day lives. Since gaining independence, Argentina has defaulted on its debts 9 times. And that brings us to today. In present-day Argentina, 55% of the population lives in poverty, and the country continues to rely on billions of dollars in loans from the International Monetary Fund, otherwise known as the IMF. They've stumbled their way through more coups and corrupt politicians until recently when a new player stepped on the scene. Javier Milei. Milei has shown himself to be a bit of an eccentric. He's not your typical politician, to say the least. Milei is a self-proclaimed libertarian, and in his efforts to return Argentina back to a stabilized economy, he slashed government expenditures to combat the current inflation rate. While these cuts have technically put Argentina in a recession, many Argentines are optimistic as inflation has lowered to 3% month over month. Argentina's natural resources like lithium and oil have even started to garner national attention. Tesla's Elon Musk has even shown interest in the country's lithium reserves. China has also extended a $4.8 billion credit line to the country. Now, this obviously creates a bit of a conflict of interest since Milei has taken a pro-US stance. He's even known to be in support of President Trump. Milei also has plans to do away with the peso as Argentina's currency and replace it with the dollar. This would be huge and would make Argentina the largest economy in the world to become dollarized. And yes, Milei has gone through and cut through most of the subsidies and government spending that was draining Argentina's economy. It's cost a lot of people their jobs and the support that they were once getting from the government. But this is likely a necessary step in order to get Argentina back to the thriving economy it once was 100 years ago. When first elected, Milei was quoted as saying, "This is going to hurt." So none of these things are unexpected. I personally hope that the country can take a turn for the best, but we'll see. Let me know what you think in the comments.